In DC, we're just hoping that you listen.
Welcome, everyone, to the Washington Football Team Preview Show, brought to you by District Divided. I am your host, Amit, and joining me is my other host, K-Dot. K-Dot, how are you doing today?
I'm doing good. We're a full week since I had that experience at FedEx Field that I recapped there on District Divided. So I'm feeling great, and I'm loving this Bill Belichick gray hoodie energy that we're giving here on the pod today.
Well, you know we're going to need some pretty elite coaching for the COVID situation that's going on right now, so I figured I'd channel it. I appreciate you recognizing exactly.
I'm always like this. I kept the sleeves. I got a bunch of cut-up sleeves.
Well, listen, I also wore the Washington Redskins jersey, admittedly, the Deshaun Jackson on the back last week, and we ended up losing. So I figured, you know what, let's switch it up, and let's just see what happens over here. We got a Tuesday game. It's going to be interesting. So let's just get to it. This is a huge game, guys. So Tuesday, 7 p.m. on Fox, we play the Philadelphia Eagles, sharing the exact same record as us. So we're going to begin with a brief overview on the Philadelphia Eagles this season. Then we're going to jump into the injury report, which is incredibly long. We're going to try and get the COVID list best. It's an evolving situation, so we'll see how it goes. At the time of this recording, it is Sunday night, just before Sunday Night Football. We'll talk about the playoff picture as well. And then we're going to break down both sides of the ball. The Washington Football Team defense against the Philadelphia Eagles offense, and then flip it to the Washington Football Team offense against the Philadelphia Eagles defense, and we will conclude with predictions as we always do. Now, let's begin with the Philadelphia Eagles as a whole. Overall, 6-7 on the season. Jalen Hurts has been their quarterback, and he's been very inconsistent. He's had some fantastic fantasy production throughout the whole year because of his rushing ability. But in terms of how Eagles fans feel about him and how the Eagles as an organization feel about him, up and down. There was a chance he was going to miss this game, but now that it's on Tuesday, he's going to end up playing. Very high chance of that. In the backfield, revolving door between Miles Sanders, Kenneth Gainwell, Boston Scott, Jordan Howard. At wide receiver, Devontae Smith, first-round pick over there, and he's had a pretty nice season. They've got Quez Watkins and a few other guys. And then, of course, Dallas Goedert at tight end, who is a star for them. That's the offensive side of the ball. Defensive side, you know the names. There's Fletcher Cox, there's Darius Slay, all those guys. K-Dot, what are your thoughts on the Philadelphia Eagles this season?
Man. I think that's been the thing is like they've shown flashes right here and there where it's like, oh, man, maybe they got something. But then you look and you see who they're playing. I know me and you talked about this a little bit pre-pod when looking at they had the same records. But as you said, and I'm constantly looking through it, you really look and you see who these guys have played and who they've beaten. The best win on that list is probably the Saints game, and that was the Trevor Siemian Saints. Doesn't count really, right? So it's like you have a team that you know that they're talented. I think the thing is they're leading the league in rushing now. But it was one of those things where I kept looking at Philadelphia, especially early on in the year, and I was wondering why they weren't running the ball more. And that was the thing that I remember, especially looking at when I think that first 3-game lose streak that they had. And it was just like, you're letting Jalen drop back there and try to throw these passes when you have all this talent there running back. And they were getting like 5 yards carry. They just weren't doing it enough. They would get away from it after the first and second quarter. I think as of recently, they found their identity through running the football. I mean, if you look at their running stats right now, it's impressive as far as the amount of yards they're getting per game. But I still look at this team overall, and I'm like, they're not really scaring anybody. Even with them having the same record as us, I don't hear anybody really talking about Philadelphia getting any sort of thing in the division. I don't really hear anybody talking about Philadelphia going on a run as far as making the wild card. They're just this team that exists that like to be a thorn in everybody's side as the rest of the teams like to do in the NFC East, and you can't overlook them.
Yeah. And I mean, just speaking to the scheduling differences, right? So typically what happens is if you finish in first place, for example, yes, everyone in the NFC East will play the same division, but for the other two divisions that you're not playing in conference, you end up playing the same team or the same finishing team. So like if you finish in first place and somebody else finished in first place, you're playing them. Second place matches up with second place. That's just how they determine the schedule. So the two big differences, and we were talking about this, like you said, pre-pod, is we had to play the Green Bay Packers and the Buffalo Bills. They got to play the Detroit Lions and the New York Jets. So this could be a 4-win team. I'm willing to bet if they played the Packers and the Bills, they would have won neither of those games. We're not even talking about that. We're talking about this as a cupcake game. So just wanted to say that this is all relative to the schedule. Now, that being said, they've figured out their identity. They are a running team, and we'll get into that breakdown very, very soon here, but they're a running team, and they play to Jalen Hurts' strengths as a result. It makes it a lot easier in the passing game. In their very last game, Gardner Minshew played lights out, but they played the New York Jets. So to be determined, but what can't be understated, K-Dot, and sort of the nice thing here is doing this just before Sunday Night Football, so we have some of the results in. First off, NFL makes no sense. Congratulations to the Detroit Lions beating the Arizona Cardinals handily by 18 points. Makes no sense. The league straight up makes no sense. But the Falcons losing was very, very big. Gives us a little bit of breathing room in that 7 seed. This is just such a crazy year, my God. But the Philadelphia Eagles and Washington football team are both probably the front runners for the 7 seed. So this game is massive. We could lose to Dallas next week 59-0, and I would be less pissed off than if we lost this game on Tuesday. This is huge. Can you speak to just the importance of this game? We play them twice, Kadeem.
Yeah, I don't find it as important as you do.
Really? Let's talk about it. Go ahead.
Because that was the thing. It's like before the Dallas game last week, I was of the idea that we were going to drop 2 out of the next 3. I thought it was going to happen where we would beat Dallas last week, lose to Philadelphia this week, and then lose to Dallas before finishing on a run, right? Like that's what I thought. That's the thing is I haven't gone and taken a look at every single playoff scenario and picture and situation to see exactly what – it just felt like that would be enough to me. And then when you're saying Atlanta lose this tonight, Philadelphia, I'm looking at the rest of their schedule. They have us twice. They got the Cowboys. It's a loss for them. And they got the Giants who – they're good.
No, so sorry to interrupt there, but that Cowboys one is very interesting to me. That it happens in the very last week of the season, and would you agree that Dallas probably is going to have the division wrapped up at that time?
Possibly, but even if they do, I think something that has always been NFC East usually doesn't rest their guys against other NFC East teams. It's not normal.
I
it's
think
not
they
a
will, considering Dak got hurt last season.
I understand what it is you're saying as far as what they're doing, and I understand if Philadelphia really needs to get it done, they could probably if they could get it done, especially if Dallas isn't trying to do that. I don't know the amount of trash that I know that Dallas was doing as far as bringing their own benches last week. To me, it almost feels old school in nature where they wouldn't let it come down to that. But once again, if they got the division wrapped up, I understand it. So, yes, this game could have more increased value or significance. I still think as far as them playing the Giants, I mean, they already lost to the Giants a week ago. So or 2 weeks ago. It's not outside the realm that I think that – I mean, this is the thing is that, like, I was going into this week kind of thinking the Philadelphia Eagles might win. But I mean, I was – also the idea that Gardner Minshew was going to play, and I'm a Gardner guy. I just thought it was going to be a case of momentum and team momentum's kind of clashing. I thought that Washington would ride the momentum or the wave that they had from the Cowboys game into Philadelphia, and then they'd meet Minshew Magic coming off that bye week, and that would be enough to say, all right, they would get a win, and then we figure it out the rest of the way.
The only thing I'd say, though, K-Dot, is, again, speaking to the NFC's not resting guys, Nate Sudfeld. He is the comfortable reason as to why we ended up winning the division last year. Because if Jalen Hurts stayed in the game, we didn't really have a solution. He didn't play particularly well, but we couldn't stop him on the ground. We've talked about our theme with mobile quarterbacks from last season. So there is a precedent for resting players and evaluating those other positions. Now, that's in a losing situation where you're trying to get a better draft pick, for example. And I'm sure the Cowboys would love to beat the Philadelphia Eagles. I'm sure they would. But they might be giving Cooper Rush that opportunity instead. And he's won a game against Minnesota, for example. So there is also reason to believe Cooper Rush could win that game. I think that's where we differ, and that's why I see the Eagles as a threat. Because if we split with them, and let's say they beat the Giants and Daniel Jones has been shut down for the season, and then they're playing Cooper Rush and some backups for Dallas, well, now we're looking at 3 wins out of 4 for the Eagles, and that's curtains for us.
Well, I mean, I'd also say that as far as Dallas going into that, well, I mean, the seeding doesn't really matter past that.
Right, exactly. Because
if
they're not grabbing the one.
Right. No, but here's the thing, is that I guess that was something I was selling myself on before last week in that Dallas game. Right now, whether or not my opinion is kind of yes, this would be a game that we would really, really want to win. All these games left are games that we really, really want to win in order to make the playoff run, of course. And I think we got a good chance at this one. I mean, once we get into the X's and O's as far as the offensive defense, at least the matchups and everything, we can get a bigger picture of whether or not we can do it. But I mean, I think the biggest thing going into this game more than any of it is what's been happening on the injury report and the COVID list for us. But
so actually, why don't we go ahead and just jump on into that in that case?
Okay.
Let's jump into the injury report. I'll go ahead and begin with the Eagles first, just because it's significantly shorter. So first and foremost, COVID has now affected them. They have a rookie offensive lineman, Landon Dickerson, who is now on the COVID list, and he's going to be missing the game. The Eagles are pretty thin overall at that offensive line, and so that is useful for us, unfortunate, and we hope that everybody on the COVID list across the board is fine and well, but he will be missing the game. Landon Dickerson once again. Then we've got Derek Barnett practicing in full, Fletcher Cox just resting, practicing in full, Jordan Howard this week, and that's big. They really, really like Jordan Howard at running back. He is a full participant. Jalen Hurts, Lane Johnson, you name it, all these guys are full participants. They are probably as healthy as they've been in quite some time. So that's the Philadelphia Eagles. I don't think outside of that, little COVID scare over there, that anything else is happening. Again, the COVID situation is evolving hourly. It really is. So just keep paying attention to the news. Now for us, okay, take a deep breath here. So J.D. McKissic, still uncertain if he's going to play. Curtis Samuel was ruled out at one point. Now, I'm honestly not so sure. We'll see, because now that the game has been moved to Tuesday, could open up. Cole Holcomb was added to the injury report. He's been limited, so we'll see, but I think he should be fine. Brandon Scherf should be fine. Keith Ishmael was on the COVID list, then came back off it, and Terry McLaurin was listed as a full participant. He hasn't been ruled out yet or anything like that, so we'll see what happens there. I expect him to play. The big ones on the COVID list. So Matt Ioannidis, for example, is still on it. Sam Cosmi, I believe, did get it, and now he should be back. I don't know. We're going to see what happens over there. But the big ones that we got back is basically the whole defensive line. Jonathan Allen got activated. He had it, then got activated. Montez Sweat got it and got activated, which is huge because he's brilliant against the NFC East. And then Casey Toohill as well as James Smith-Williams, I believe, are both off the COVID list as well. That's the entire defensive line. Huge, huge impact there. And then we're still figuring out what's going on at quarterback. As of right now, this is, again, Sunday night before Sunday Night Football. We don't have Taylor Heinicke, and I don't think we're going to by the time this game kicks off on Tuesday. A guy we could get back is Kyle Allen. Otherwise, we're looking at either Garrett Gilbert, who started one game for Dallas last season, or Kyle Shermer, or maybe Jordan Ta'amu, if that is the correct pronunciation, who actually was the starter for the St. Louis Battlehawks, his backup, Taylor Heinicke. K-Dot, talk to me about your concerns with this incredibly lengthy injury list, COVID list, you name it. How are you feeling as of right now?
Fucking sucks, man. This is terrible. The what happened with the defensive line is huge, especially in this matchup to me, considering what it is we had to go through even last week against Dallas, where we were missing our top 4 defensive ends going into that game. It's like that alone is a huge thing. Getting Montez Sweat back and what he can do laterally with his speed against the run, especially, is something that I was really, really looking forward to getting back. J.D. McKissic, that to me still on offense is the most important guy as far as getting back to really help spell Antonio Gibson. So it sucks to hear. I don't know what it is that's going to happen with him by the end of it. It's not looking promising. I don't think they're going to rush him back. But it's – and then the quarterback position. I mean, Kyle Allen looked fine in the when he came out there against Dallas last week. Everybody would love to see Taylor go, but that's not looking likely. I don't have anything for you on Garrett Gilbert, Jordan Ta'amu, or fucking Kyle Shermer. Kyle Shermer, I kept thinking, I'm not a coach, and I kept thinking Pat Shermer, and I'm like, God damn, I don't know these motherfuckers. Like, it's a terrifying thought that any one of these guys would have to start for us. But I mean, at the end of the day, our philosophy that we got away from the Dallas game because of how far back we got was we're a run-first team. And I think that if Antonio Gibson can do what he needs to do, I mean, then I think we're always going to have a shot regardless of who's back there. as long as they're not turning that football over. And what you could do if you got a Curtis Samuel back there, you could do a lot of shallow stuff, a lot of quick things, a lot of just getting the ball moved around. It could potentially help any one of these guys if they have to start.
And so if I could just quickly correct myself, Sam Cosmi never had COVID. He has been on the injured reserve list. He was on a tweet associated with some COVID folks. That's why I thought so. My apologies there. Here is the current list. 2 quarterbacks, Taylor Heinicke and Kyle Allen. Then we've got 2 corners, Troy Apke and Kendall Fuller. And we know that Kendall Fuller is not vaccinated, so he's definitely missing the game. Then Cameron Curl. That's a big one. That is a very big miss as of right now. Then running back Wendell Smallwood. And we got, Milo Eifler, Derek Forrest, David Mayo, William Bradley King, Tyler Larson, Cornelius Lucas, Samis Reyes, who also has a concussion, Tamark Hemingway, Tim Settle, Matt Ioannidis. That is enormous. That list is enormous. And we'll see, again, who gets activated tomorrow, Monday. And then on game day itself, it is possible we could get some game day activations, which would be great. So thank goodness the NFL did the right thing and moved this game. But it's an evolving, fluid situation. We'll see what happens. But let's go ahead and jump into the breakdown now. Okay, so the Washington football team defense against the Philadelphia Eagles offense. The Philadelphia Eagles run the ball at an incredible rate. They are one of the top teams running the football in terms of rushing play percentage. There you go, number one. And in terms of actual number of carries as well. They are committed to it. Their quarterback can run as well. K-Dot, I ask you, we've been good against the run all season, but we haven't really gone against a team that uses their quarterback on design runs as such. Do you have any concerns there? How are you feeling about this matchup?
Yeah, that's a major concern. Like, I get that they have that revolving door route running backs, and I'm always a believer that the running back by committee, especially if you're committed to it, is a problem for any defense, just because once you get used to tackling a particular style of runner or getting a read on how it is they like to hit the hole or anything and then have to completely switch it up for another guy, it's hard to do. But I still go back to the biggest rushing threat that we had against our team the entire season so far was Daniel Jones there in week 2. And I don't think anybody would think that Daniel Jones is more athletic in his running ability than Jalen Hurts is. And so that is definitely a concern. And I think that when you look at this team, you see how many guys, especially on the defense, we haven't had for so long this year. When you have a guy like a Montez Sweat that could chase down some of these guys as long as he's not over pursuing or just trying to run by. There's so many times that he's running by the tackle. He's 10 yards back. He beat him, but there's such a long way around that he can't get, and the quarterback can move up in the pocket and do this and do that. They have a John Allen and those guys that could crash down forward. I mean, I think depending on what happens with these COVID deals, there is some stuff that we're doing on defense that should be able to help with that. Landon Collins down near the box is an issue if you have him spying that quarterback or trying to keep him contained. If you can have Montez not try to run too far back and keep that quarterback contained, and having Landon Collins kind of shut down the side of the field. Those are things that we weren't doing in week 2 when Daniel Jones was gashing us for all those times. And it's not like all the quarterbacks we have faced are not rushing threats. Cam Newton was a rushing threat. Russell Wilson, rushing threat. They're just not necessarily, like you said, designed runs there with them. And if Cam Newton's got a design run, it's usually right there on the goal line for his touchdown. So it's an issue. I do have faith that right now you looked at that Cowboys team that we faced last week with another guy who can get out of the pocket and run on you, Dak Prescott. And I think he did a couple times there on this. And when they had CeeDee Lamb in the backfield, Ezekiel Elliott, and Pollard, we were able to hold them, I think it was like 120, 122.
Yeah, right.
With 4 of our starting 4, our top 2, starting and backup defensive ends out last week. To think that Dallas still couldn't really manage to – I mean, they were having success in a lot of other ways, but the fact that they couldn't just run it down our throats, especially when they needed to at the end of the game, speaks to the fact that this defense still has a lot of talent in stopping that. This COVID thing ends up being the biggest the biggest issue. If Cam Curl can play or not is a big deal. You saw even last week when they had some issues happening at safety, you saw Landon Collins was playing further back. Nobody wants Landon Collins playing further back off the line. No one wants to see him playing a single high coverage at all during this game. Never. But that's what we want is we need some of these guys to be able to come back so that we can do the things that started working with the defense. Some of these guys are getting healthy. I was looking forward to, without this COVID shit, having a Montez come back in addition to the guys that we had, especially when the backups have been looking too good, when Casey Toohill has been looking good, when James Smith has been looking good. To think that you could have somebody who's leap years ahead of them talent-wise get added to the defense is huge. Without those things, we just don't know. I have no idea what the defense will look like. I have faith that we should be able to stop that run.
And I think the two most important people to come off this COVID list, and I feel a bit bad saying it, but it's true, is Cameron Curl and obviously Kyle Allen, right? So and we'll get into the quarterbacks in a moment. But Cameron Curl, what that allows us to do is have some safety depth. What that allows us to do is play Landon Collins closer to the line of scrimmage. And what that allows us to do is potentially spy Jalen Hurts with someone that can actually keep up with him. That is huge. So please pay attention and monitor his status when we're talking about this game over here. Because if we don't have Cameron Curl and Landon Collins has to play a little further back, he's all right in pass coverage. He has been playing better even at the safety position.
Yes.
But we're losing the speed near the line that we would probably need to help contain Jalen Hurts. That's my biggest fear. I'd love to see Jalen Hurts have to try and pick us apart, even missing Kendall Fuller, Troy Apke, and just see what he can do. Because as a passer, highly questionable. His passer rating, not very good, below average in the NFL. The Eagles as a whole, including Gardner Minshew's performance, around 22, 23 in the league at around 86. So try and make him beat you as a passer because we've been very good against the run this whole season. Again, this is a totally different beast when you have QB design runs, a guy that can do a quick little read option and just take off. I mean, it's going to be hard. It is definitely going to be hard, but make Jalen Hurts beat you from the pocket, and Cameron Curl being available is a very significant thing. Do you know if Cam is vaccinated or not? I'm not sure.
No idea. I want to say yes, just because a lot of the times with those names have been floating around, and I don't think I've seen him on those lists or on what former extremeskins.com
Right.
in the forum or whatever. I haven't seen him mentioned too much, so I'm assuming no, but sometimes the fans can get it wrong.
One question I have for you, Devontae Smith, right? So former Heisman Trophy winner, explosive off the line of scrimmage. He's very, very good. He's been contained sometimes by Jalen Hurts. Hate to say it, but it's true. What are your thoughts on him? What are your thoughts on the Eagles passing game?
So that was going to be the point that I was going to make next, was the Fuller is another big thing as far as the secondary, because the secondary has been the Achilles heel of Washington when we were doing the worst that we've been doing this season. And it's such a precarious area, right? It was like we finally got the right perfect recipe and the perfect touch on what it is was happening with William Jackson, with Fuller, with Danny Johnson. They were working in unison finally. For the most part, they still get beat every once in a while, but they were finally communicating the way that they needed to. And you saw guys not get beat, or some guy was playing too shallow and didn't think that this guy was going to cover this guy or that guy. They were starting to get in that groove. Anything missing to that adds a complexity that I don't trust this secondary as is. And I think anything that happens to them that changes any of that is a cause for concern. Yeah, he scares me. The dude's a burner, right? Like he's an outright burner. And the one thing that we have not, we do it every once in a while, but the thing that I have not really seen a lot of Washington, I'm trying to look this up right here. From a turnover standpoint, it's a lot of feast or famine. Even when we were going through weeks 5 through 8, where we were getting them, we lost every single one of those games. So it's like what it is you do with the turnovers and getting turnovers. I don't know, man. Like, to me, if the front four can do their jobs in stopping Jalen Hurts, forcing him to beat you, we might get beat once or twice, but it ain't going to happen all day. And if we can get there to him, get a couple licks on him, let him know that we're there, I think it only helps the back end. It only helps the back end.
Yeah, I would totally agree with that assessment. And losing Kendall Fuller is huge. And knowing that he's unvaccinated, knowing there's no chance he can play in this game really, really hurts, because he can play that slot really well. And Devontae Smith finds himself in the slot quite a bit. So I guess if you're looking for player props, if you're a gambler, maybe, and I hate to say it, but maybe look at that. Maybe Devontae Smith ends up having a big game. Hopefully not, though. Let's flip sides of the ball. Let's talk about the Washington football team offense led by, we'll figure it out. At the very least, Antonio Gibson, as of right now, is playing against the Philadelphia Eagles defense. So over here, our offensive line is banged up, but we could get Sam Cosmi back, for example. Brandon Scherf, as of right now, is going to be playing. Keith Ishmael looks like he's going to be able to play. So we do have some pieces on the offensive line. That's going to be great. But still nervous because that Eagles defensive line historically has been very good. And this year it's been pretty good. They can stop the run. They're pretty good at that, averaging just around 4 yards per carry, and more recently, even less than that. Now, through the air, different story. They are okay, but honestly a bit suspect. And Terry McLaurin loves a game against Darius Slay. Let's be real. He is very, very good against Darius Slay. K-Dot, what are your thoughts on this side of the ball? And we'll get into the quarterback in a moment. You're on mute.
Sorry, I just started talking. Yeah,
No
I love that Zoom will really show you, hey, you sure you're on mute? You want to talk?
Right.
But
I got on that a lot.
Yeah, it's pretty legit. Yeah, man, this is a defense that if you're overall looking at it, we once again start looking at the matchups of who it is they have played and where it is we could say about the rush defense. If we're looking at since week 8, they've only let 100 yards go to one opponent, and that was New Orleans Saints. But if I'm looking at the other guys that they've played, Jets, Giants, Saquon had a day today, best day he's had in 2 years. The Saints, we understand them. And even in that Saints game, did they even have Kamara? I'm trying to take a look. Nope, that was a Mark Ingram game.
Right. Yeah.
It was a Mark Ingram game. So if I'm looking at that, I'm like, all right, we're probably the best running attack that they're going to face this year. I mean, or at least in the last few games. They had the Chargers, but the Chargers game was Justin Herbert was just launching everything that didn't matter.
It's what they do at this point, right?
And also Eckler's a stud, but they were just launching everything. They didn't even need to do the running.
Correct.
This is going to be, number one, who the fuck the quarterback's going to be is going to dictate a lot of what's happening with this game, right? I'm very, very hopeful that Kyle Allen will get the start because I think – and that's where I'm going to kind of base it off of is my hope that Kyle Allen is this guy and he starts. With Kyle Allen starting, what I think you even saw in the Dallas game, other than that fluke fucking fumble bullshit that they did there at the end, which I still think his arm is going for it. So what you have with Kyle Allen is a guy who is very familiar and comfortable with the offense that Scott Turner runs. And what you can see is that if you have a guy like Curtis Samuel, if you have a guy like Antonio Gibson that can catch the ball out of the backfield, a lot of the quick gadget stuff to kind of get you in a rhythm, Kyle Allen should be Johnny on the spot there with it. The only thing that Kyle Allen might not do is push the ball down the field the same way that Taylor Heinicke would. But I'd also say that Kyle Allen has a better arm than Taylor Heinicke fucking has. So if he does need to push the ball, if you have a Terry McLaurin that's out there and you just get it out there to him, there's a chance that we're going to win some of those matchups. But at the end of the day, what our identity is running the football. And that goes to Antonio Gibson protecting the fucking football. The Dallas game is summed up by those 4 turnovers, period.
Correct.
We were right there in it. The turnovers are what absolutely killed us, and we cannot keep doing this. And I know that Ron Rivera probably had Antonio Gibson sleeping with the football this entire week. At least he should have been. And we need to find out get Tiki Barber's old coach to come in and just do something because it's ridiculous. Antonio Gibson has an amazing skill set. He has one of the best skill sets of any running back in the league. If you have a guy that's 225 pounds but can catch the ball out of the backfield like any wide receiver, like a solid second or third round wide receiver, the dude can ball. And I think that finally he started realizing that he's the same. I think I'm not mistaken by saying he's the exact same height and weight as Leonard Fournette.
He's a big boy. He's a big boy, yeah.
He's a big dude. And when he lowers his shoulder and makes stuff happen, like he can run with the big boys. But once he fumbles the ball, everything gets skewed out because Ron Rivera's not rushing him back out there. So you don't know what's happening as far as where he would go with the game continuing if he could just hold on to the football. So I think that's the main thing on the offense is Antonio Gibson hold on the football. If J.D. McKissic is not going to play this game, which is a huge thing, He's got to protect the fucking football. We can run the ball. Run it. And Antonio protect it. That's got to be the identity of what's happening on this offense. And I think against Philadelphia, even if you're looking at where it is they stack rushing defense-wise, if I really look through the opponents, if I look and see what the flow of the game was, I think this is still a team that can get the ball ran down their throat.
Yeah, and I mean, again, I'm wearing the hoodie, and we talked about this. If we really need to, we're about to talk about the quarterbacks. Maybe the QB only throws 3 times, and we do that. Pretend it's 50-mile-per-hour winds and you're playing at Buffalo on the road on a Monday night, because that has the Patriots won. Now, they're geniuses over there, and they're the best organization in all of football, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But they showed that you don't need to just give in to the pressure of throwing if the conditions are not right for you, whether it be weather, whether it be personnel, whether it be anything. And Antonio Gibson is more than good enough to be able to carry us in this game, in my opinion. Like you said, he's about the size of Leonard Fournette. That is huge, and he runs very, very fast. If you want to throw, maybe some quick stuff. This is all in the event Kyle Allen's not available. Kyle Allen knows the offense. And the only reason he stopped playing last season is because he ended up getting hurt. He wasn't pulled. He got hurt. They like him. So if Kyle Allen can go, this is a regular offense, and we'll see what we can do. If he can't, let's talk about the other names. Garrett Gilbert was brought in off of the New England Patriots practice squad. So he quite recently saw the Patriots do exactly what we're talking about. Maybe that's why we brought him in. But the real reason we brought him in is because he has familiarity with both Scott Turner and Ron Rivera from 2018. So he spent some time with them. And he played 1 game for the Dallas Cowboys last season, started it. It was a 24-19 loss to the Pittsburgh Steelers. At the time, the Steelers were 3-0. Gilbert's numbers that day, 21 of 38 for 243 yards, 1 touchdown, 1 interception, 3 carries for 28 yards, a QBR of 56.8. And remember, average QBR is 50. That's how it's based. So he actually had a decent game. So he could play. He probably knows the system a little bit, but I think it's pretty damning of Kyle Shermer, which is the next name we're going to talk about, because he's been on the practice squad, since this past offseason. And he has had the chance to look at the playbook, and he maybe didn't get reps, right? He would have over the offseason, but to not necessarily be ready for this opportunity, because I think it would be a pretty natural transition to him and go, hey, these 2 guys are out. Ryan Fitzpatrick's still out, so it's going to be your time. Something must have gone wrong for them to bring in Garrett Gilbert, for Adam Schefter to say, hey, by the way, Taylor Heinicke tested positive for COVID, and they are signing Garrett Gilbert, and he's going to start. So they don't really have faith in Kyle Shermer. So I don't think you're going to see him. And I think that's just the truth of it. It hurts. He hasn't had an NFL game before. He hasn't had an NFL throw before. No experience there. And then Jordan Ta'amu, it's a cool story, the St. Louis Battlehawks stuff, but he also doesn't have the experience. Now, granted, Taylor Heinicke didn't either. And there is maybe a slightly plausible narrative to, well, if Heinicke was backing him up, just how good was he? It's a fun little fairy tale if you want to think about it that way, but I don't think it's going to happen there either. So it's going to be either Garrett Gilbert or Kyle Allen. We're hoping for Kyle Allen. Question for you, K-Dot, if we don't have Kyle Allen, do we have any shot at winning this game?
Yeah. I think it goes back to how successful you're going to be running the football. I think that has got to be the thing. Now, I know that it's hard if everyone knows, okay, this guy barely has any NFL starts, or has the 1 NFL start, and we're just going to fucking stack the box against the run, let him try to throw. I think that a lot of times, and I think what it is that with Taylor too, Heinicke when he came in, is that you have guys that are willing to try shit. They know that this is their opportunity. And I think if anybody's looking at the trajectory of the Washington football team recently, if you're any one of these guys, you see that if you're able to go in there and light a spark, you have an opportunity here. And I think that the big thing for Washington is there's a wide receiver that we have on this team that can cover up a lot of fucking mistakes that you make throwing that ball down the field. And it's Terry McLaurin. And I think that if you have one of these guys to say, you know what, man, fuck this. I've seen Taylor Heinicke throw football. I know I got a better arm than this dude. Let me just go out there and gun this shit to this Terry guy, and let's see what happens. Like, I think that there is a possibility that maybe one of these guys kind of takes over, or not takes over, but makes enough throws that you can win a game along with the running game. And I think that that's the thing that Washington has to not be afraid of. Things have to almost work perfectly for us. It's got to be a team that works in unison. We need to have a defense make sure that we're not down early. Reason being not down early is that we need to be able to rely on the run and not get away from the run. It's very hard to do when you're down 14-0 to say, man, fuck it, we got to start getting this ball down the field. And I think that's something that I even criticize Scott Turner for sometimes, is that they do look for excuses to get away from the run. And I think that if I'm looking across the league, almost every coordinator has the exact same affliction. They look for any possible reason to say, yeah, run's not working. Let's just throw the ball. And this has got to be something we stick with. It's trying to make the success there on first down and not giving up on it. It's running the first 2 downs. You're throwing some play action if you can get to a second series. Do what you need to do to establish that we're not going to stop. Because the more carries that Antonio Gibson has with his speed, and with what he's able to do with running down guys, he can finish this. He can finish these games. He beats down these front 7 guys and then takes one off. And you know the Antonio Gibson run, the 20 yards down the field where at the end it looks like he has his eyes closed and he's just kind of going for where they're all tight. Right. And it's like, and he just doesn't hit the ground. It's like everybody, we know what he's capable of doing. This has got to be his team. And I think that's what Antonio needs to understand, is that this could be his team. The same way it's Christian McCaffrey's team there in Carolina and on that offensive side. The same way that New York, it should be Saquon if he wasn't looking for the home run every goddamn run. Antonio Gibson needs to know, hey, it is a quarterback-driven league, but I'm one of the old school cats. I can be the Derrick Henry for these guys. And he needs to take that and put it on his shoulders and make it happen. And the guys coming back for the offensive line are only going to help things. The way that we've had a lot of guys go down recently and not being able to establish a run. And in that Dallas game, because of the turnovers, getting away from the run real early, I think this is one of these games where if we can play good defense, we'll be in it.
Man, you've got me ready for this game, and you've got me believing heavily in Antonio Gibson over here. So thank you for that. Any player prop, I see Antonio Gibson just over. I think he could do it. I really do. I really like the points that you made over there. I also think Jared Patterson's going to get an opportunity to get some carries over here to spell Antonio Gibson and keep him as fresh as possible. It also shortens the number of possessions in the game in a situation where you have an uncertain roster. So it's very, very important for that reason as well. The clock keeps ticking. It's important to get at the very least 3 points. I know there's all this stuff about analytics right now, 4th and 2, 4th and 3, whatever. Just take your points. It's taking a beating this week. This is coming from a data analyst, my God. But yeah, get as many points as you can running the ball. And if Kyle Allen can play, fine. Again, it's normal. Great. Let's go. But if not, protect Garrett Gilbert in this case. I do think he'll end up being the starter. There's a lot of chatter about him learning the offense very quickly, or maybe recalling the offense from his time over there in 2018. Before we get to predictions, K-Dot, can you think of anyone with more pressure on them right now than Kyle Allen trying to produce a negative COVID test? I mean, the pressure on this guy right now, he must be reading this. Everyone's like, oh, Kyle Allen will be back. Yeah, he'll be back. And he's probably like, come on. Like, he's just trying to test to just get this negative COVID.
That's a hell of a way to put it. The most pressure COVID result in America. Kyle Allen.
Hey, the DMV is waiting.
It's big. It's big. I mean, but I know Kyle is of the look, man. Whatever happens, happens. Or what Kyle might need to do is hit up Antonio Brown, see if he got some positive test results he can sell for a bit. Or negative test results, right? Negative test results.
Right.
Yeah, man, it's big. I actually, the one thing I will say is that there was a part of me, especially after that Dallas game, where I realized being at the game and seeing Taylor Heinicke fall to his knees and try to crawl off the field was something. But Kyle Allen excited me. And I think that that's where we're at right now, is that as much as Taylor Heinicke, we do know that he has certain limitations. I mean, I'd love for him to be starting this game and start the rest of the season just because I think he's the guy. But if you're Kyle, you also look at the same way I was looking at Garrett Gilbert and looking at Jordan Ta'amu and all the rest of these guys. Kyle Allen, this is an opportunity for you.
Golden, yeah.
Huge opportunity. Like, you look at last year, he came in there, was looking good. Then he gets hurt. It's the end of that. And it's like, I know this offense. Curtis Samuel is here. I know this offense. Like, to have an Antonio Gibson that I can throw the ball to out of the backfield, I know this fucking offense. To Terry McLaurin, hell of a weapon, better than anything I had in Carolina anywhere else. Give me the shot. I think Kyle's got to be sitting there, and the pressure from Kyle, I think, is excitement. And he wants to be this. He wants this shot. He really, really wants this shot. Taylor just kind of came out of nowhere, and it is the guy and like the anointed son for this season and next season for the most part. But Kyle wants to. He should love this opportunity.
Absolutely. I mean, even if we look at last season in the game he got hurt, he got off to a fantastic start against that LA Rams defense.
Yeah.
I mean, he was playing great. So he's got potential here.
He's just up-tempo. The dude, he's such an you can see it's very much like when Taylor first came in. There's always like some of these guys got like the jitters. I call it the jumps. So it's like when you see the quarterbacks that are in the pocket and they're always bouncing up and down. They're just like they got the nervous energy. Mm-hmm. It's like they're just okay.
Yeah.
There's Kyle Allen, Taylor Heinicke when he was first starting out. Sometimes it's like the jitters until you get hit a couple times to get a rhythm or whatever. Yeah. Kyle Allen continues to kind of sit in that energy. Same way with Taylor sometimes until you can see he got more comfortable with the offense. But there's some of that energy that's kind of good for an offense. It can light a spark. When you're more up-tempo and you're getting these guys, the defense, which are a bunch of rah-rah dudes on the sideline, like, let's go. And they feed off of that. This could be really, really fun. God damn it. If Kyle Allen doesn't play, I'm going to be so upset.
Well, so that's actually what I was going to ask you real quick is gut feeling. Does Kyle Allen play? Yes or no?
I thoroughly always expect COVID to fuck me. So I'm going to say no.
All right. You're going to say no. I'm going to say yes. Cam Sims and Daniel Wise came off the COVID list today, which is why I didn't mention their names earlier. And I can't remember which of the two, it may have been Cam Sims, tested positive the same day as Kyle Allen, and he's off the list. So there is reason for optimism that he could come off tomorrow, or he could even come off on Tuesday, and it's not like we're going across the country or something like that, and he can't travel with the team to Las Vegas, let's say. It's Philly. If we need to get him a Hertz or an Uber or whatever it may be, we will do that, and we will make sure he's at Lincoln Financial to be able to play that game. So let's jump into predictions.
I'm actually going to make a prediction here.
Okay, go for it.
Taylor and Kyle will both be available.
No, you think Taylor's going to test out too?
I think they'll both test out, and I think that's going to be an interesting – who do you want to start?
Oh, Taylor, if he can. But
see, I'm saying off the COVID list, but we saw Taylor get his brains bashed in. So, are you more excited about a prospect? Both of them clear. Are you more excited about a Kyle Allen start or a Taylor Heinicke start?
Oh, you're putting me on the spot.
I am putting you on the spot.
Okay. If I am honest, I am more excited about a Kyle Allen start.
I know.
Last week scared the shit out of me from what I saw in Taylor, from what I saw in the offensive line as well. And in that respect, Taylor is really good. I think he just had a bad game. If Taylor ends up playing, I'm thrilled, just to be clear. That being said, Kyle Allen, he only had 2 or 3 plays, but it was a quick reminder of some of the stuff he did last year that was really nice before he got hurt. He actually had a decent playing opportunity last year, and he made the most of it, in my opinion. There was that New York Giants game, which gave everyone a bad taste, but everyone has a bad game. I would be more intrigued and more excited for a Kyle Allen opportunity here. That being said, nice to have the continuity of Taylor, but yes, to answer your question, Kyle Allen, that's what I would do. So now let's jump to the predictions. Thank you for putting me on the spot there. Normally, I would give you a line. I'd give you an over-under. No one knows at this point. As of right now, it's 6.5 points, but that could change tomorrow and then day after, and then at 4 p.m. and at 5 p.m. and at 6 p.m. So no line, no over-under. K-Dot, who wins?
I'm going with my gut. This is not predicated on anything but gut at this particular point in time.
It can be, right.
I predicted that Washington would lose this game. My prediction was based on the start of one Gardner Minshew, who I love. He's not starting. most likely. So I'm going to say Washington wins this game. I was afraid of Minshew magic. And I think Minshew and the way that he throws the football and the way that he had the guys kind of energized and feeling it last week, I'm a guy of momentum. We're a week before the bye. I'm a guy of momentum. With Gardner not starting and them getting readjusted to Jalen Hurts, which has not been super successful recently, I don't think they're going to start off as hot as they have been. And that, to me, is the only thing that I can hold my hat on, is that anytime I'm playing Philadelphia, I am always reminded of that Michael Vick, Deshaun Jackson
my Lord.
drubbing of us early. And it's one of those things where anytime I'm playing Philly, I always feel like it's either going to go off the rails really, really, really quickly, or we're going to be at it and we're winning the game. Like, I never feel like there's anything in between. I know the stats and everything will show me it's something different, but it's either we're getting blown the fuck out or we're going to win something close. And I think we'll win something close.
Okay, what do you think the score is?
$24.
Okay.
Hold on, now take it back. 21.
All right, 21.
21-17, Washington over Philly.
Okay, 21-17, Washington over Philly. I'm assuming Antonio Gibson is your player of the game?
Antonio Gibson has 2 of those touchdowns.
Okay. We are 1-1 in the NFC East when we both pick Washington, and we're about to find out if we're 2-1 or we're 1-2. This is a very optimistic side of me over here. I do think Kyle Allen is going to play, and that's a big part of this, and this is off the gut as well. I do think Washington wins. I do think it's low scoring because I do think that even with Kyle Allen, we're going to run a lot. I think both teams, in a sense, Washington more than Philly more for their identity, but Washington, we want this game to end as soon as possible. We want to shorten it because we're missing a number of people, and we want to have it come down to the last drive or two. Let Kyle get loose over the course of 3-4 quarters and let Antonio Gibson do some damage. So I think it's going to be a low-scoring affair. I think it's going to be Washington 17, and I think it's going to be Philadelphia 13 because this defense continues to impress me when they're missing people. Now we get Montez Sweat back, which I think is huge. I think he actually gets us a turnover. I think Antonio Gibson, I agree, gets a touchdown. He might get 1 rushing, 1 receiving. And I do think that Kyle Allen, if he plays, ends up playing well enough. I think he also has a turnover in this game, but I think we end up playing well enough. So Washington 17, Philadelphia 13. The one thing I would say, if you see an over-under of 41, 42, something like that, I would go under for this game in particular. I do think both teams love to run. It's a shorter game. We're going to see what happens, though. I'm nervous. I think this game is huge. K-Dot, I know you know this game is huge. I think we're slightly different right now, and I think it's all because of how we view, to summarize, that Cowboys-Eagles game the very last week of the season.
I agree with that. I just think the way it's shaking out, I mean, if I'm looking at the NFC picture right now, because I meant to do this while you're here.
Sure.
Cowboys are a game behind.
Right.
So it could come down the wire.
Yeah.
I mean,
it certainly will.
Arizona got their ass kicked today by the fucking Detroit Lions. It makes no sense. So, I mean, I'm just saying it's not outside the realm of possibility. The Packers, I mean, Aaron Rodgers is on fire. I doubt the Packers lose.
The Lions covered the Cardinals spread. The
Yeah,
Cardinals were favored by
insane.
14. The Lions covered that.
Insane. But I mean, the only thing I look at right now are the Packers, the unstoppable force. I mean, after we get off the pod, I'm going to see what Tom Brady does here tonight. But and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, I know they're just hoping Antonio Brown comes back.
I know.
We'll see.
Well, as of right now, the score, or you're not DVRing the game or anything like
No,
that?
no.
Right? Okay, yeah. New Orleans up 3-0 with 2:30 in the first. They have the ball. They're driving. They're in Tampa territory. So once again, it's early.
Slow start.
But slow start for Tampa Bay, and this would be a sweep for New Orleans. We're rooting for Tampa Bay big time over here. We want as much breathing room as possible. New Orleans, I think, has Miami on their schedule. I think they have the Falcons on the schedule. They can pick up some wins, so we certainly don't want them picking a win up against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers at Tampa. So hopefully they win. That's going to conclude it here for the Washington Football Team preview show. It was all over the place, again, but that's because of COVID. Right? Like, we're trying to navigate the situation just like all of you. So we hope you really enjoyed the episode with us. Continue to monitor the COVID situation, because that point spread can swing like crazy depending on that. And your feelings on the game can swing like crazy depending on that. Let's hope for a Kyle Allen start, though. I think that'd be fantastic. I'm Amit. That is KDOT. Thanks again for listening, and we will see you guys next week. Take it easy.